Israeli airstrikes on Gaza have killed at least 28 Palestinians today, including 19 in Yunus, while the overall death toll since October 2023 has now surpassed 52,000. The Palestinian government also reports 57 deaths from starvation due to Israel's siege. Meanwhile, tensions rise as Yemen's Houthi rebels claim responsibility for a missile strike on Israel, signaling continued support for Palestine. Israel's Security Cabinet is set to discuss expanding military operations. Stay with us for a special analysis on the situation on Qnews. At least 28 Palestinians were killed in Israeli airstrikes across Gaza since the early hours of today. In Yunus, 19 people were martyred in what has been described as a massacre by Israeli forces. Among the victims were 3 children. Additionally, 10 more bodies were recovered from the rubble in Gaza's Shajaya neighborhood by civil defense teams. The Ministry of Health in Gaza reported that Israeli airstrikes have killed at least 77 Palestinians over the past 48 hours. The strikes also left 275 others injured. The ministry statement confirmed that the death toll from Israel's ongoing assault in Gaza since October 2023 has now reached 52,495, with 118,366 other wounded. The aerial bombardment continues to devastate the Gaza Strip amid rising casualties. The Palestinian government reported that the death toll from Israel's siege on Gaza has risen to 57 as a result of starvation tactics employed by the occupying forces. Among the victims, a young girl died at Al-Rantizi Hospital in Gaza City due to dehydration and malnutrition. The World Health Organization described the situation in Gaza as catastrophic, with children suffering severe malnutrition, leading to long-term health consequences for the population. And for further analysis, we're joined from Cairo by the political science professor, Dr. Ayman El-Rakb. Dr. Ayman, thank you so much for joining us on this special coverage. And Israel has been intensifying its airstrikes on Gaza. How do you view this recent escalation? If you can pinpoint the key military strategies behind Israel's continued airstrikes on Gaza, and how have they evolved over time?
After greetings, what the Israeli occupations undergoing in a continued airstriking on Gaza Strip after the resumption of the war on the 18th of March, there is an intensifying hostilities that lead to this no safe place in the Gaza Strip that lead the number of victims in a larger scales, and every day we more than 30 martyrs have fallen down, and the number has escalated to 53,000, and 1,000 under the rebels, 1,000 dead. There is no strategy for the Israeli occupation, and this establishing buffer zones in the Gaza Strip, and even today, when the exploded the distribution of the aids in line with establishing the social zone. Till now, it never entered. Even the arrangements with the American side and the Israeli army refused to tackle the mission of distributing their aids, and This is preceded by the establishment of buffer zones in the Gaza Strip, and there is a state of hellish panic and crazy deeds by the Israeli army that would affect on a larger scale for the allied hostages captured in Gaza.
So, sir, the Israeli Security Cabinet is set to hold a meeting to discuss expanding military operations in Gaza. What are your expectations regarding the outcomes of this meeting?
The cabinet of the Israeli small cabinet that convened yesterday and will be having another meeting at the end of today after the sunset. Therefore, they will tackle two files. The first one, the expansion of the Israeli operation in Gaza Strip that would lead to the beginning or the calling or summoning on the several soldiers of the reserve armies. And in addition, to discuss the mechanism of distributing the aid, as we've already mentioned, along with the establishment of the buffer zones. And it will be based upon the reports that is going to be addressed tonight.
Yes, regarding the humanitarian crisis, according to the CNN, Israeli and U.S. officials are currently in talks to implement a mechanism that would allow for humanitarian aid entry that bypasses Hamas. How do you interpret the possibility of this happening?
This statement isn't new. Israelis talked about it many times in order to ease the international pressure to deliver the humanitarian aid into Gaza. We all know that the goods supplies were stopped in the beginning of this month, that we are having some sort of famine in the Gaza Strip, and all the goods storages were emptied, and what the occupation addressing to discuss the delivery mechanism in order just to ease the international pressure, and creating pretext as waiting for laying down the mechanism of distribution of the aid. And there is a disagreement between the political establishment and the army. It's only just to gain time. There is no vision of the distributing the aids. They are even the Palestinian Authority refusing to receive the humanitarian aids, and therefore they are attempting to not to enter in the aid, and this would mean to resort into foreign companies, and would require many officials to supervise the process. And according to Israel, reported in the media, to establish the buffer zones and to have the population block as a biggest as a big prison to move the population through the Mirage corridor, and then to be placed in this place to receive the food commodities, and the rest of the Gaza Strip will be just for places for engagement. This is the plan of the occupation forces.
Now it's become apparent that Israel is using starvation as a weapon against Palestinians. In light of this, how does the World Health Organization assess the long-term health risks posed by malnutrition and dehydration for Gaza's population, particularly for vulnerable groups like children?
There are thousands of the shortage of food. A great portion live fell dead and as designated the victims of the war. According to the report, there is a greater shortage of the vaccines, so that led the death toll to great numbers. Even a call launched by the Red Crescent organization talking about a catastrophic situations that affected all the children, along with the shortage of the food supplies, and there is a real famine in Gaza, and as they are lacking the flour that resorted to transform what is left of the beans and the food of the animals to be transformed to flour. All these that means that already reached to the face of famine. Unfortunately, the international community is crippled to curb the deeds of the occupation and is exposed and subjected of the dedication of the backing countries such as the United States. And if the whole country is to pressure US against this resolution, will find a resolution by the US. Unfortunately, in a very state of brutality, only governed and controlled by the strongest.
Mm-hmm. Now, delving into a legal perspective, can you explain the legal implications of Israel's airstrikes and siege on Gaza, particularly in relation to international humanitarian law?
What is taken by the occupation is over exceeding the humanitarian laws. Even we cannot describe what's happening in Gaza is the war. It's only just like a slaughtering. On daily basis, the Palestinian people are getting killed. What are all being doing by the occupations, such as starvation and the refraining the entry of these medical supplies, is all can be prescribed that war crimes, and such as the attacks against the UNRWA and backed by the US. Hence, we are talking about an entity that is overload out of the international community and cannot find anyone to deter them.
Mm-hmm. Lastly, sir, I have to ask you, what are the prospects for an immediate ceasefire or a political solution to address the growing humanitarian catastrophe in Gaza?
If we talk about a political solution, that it is only the two-state solution that has already been killed. As mentioned by the UN officials, if we're talking about a temporary solution, there are efforts made by Cairo and Qatar to have some sort of a relief and to have an opportunity to start a negotiation about the ceasefire. But the occupation is rejecting this. What has only been doing by the occupation territories in Gaza and in Lebanon, and also striking the ship that was coming from Greece to deliver or to send some humanitarian aid.
Mm-hmm. From Cairo, that was the political science professor, Dr. Ayman al-Raqb. Thank you so much for joining us here on Qnews. The Israeli Security Cabinet, chaired by Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu, will hold an emergency meeting on Sunday to discuss the potential expansion of military operations in Gaza. Israeli media reports suggest that the army plans to deploy reserve forces to the Lebanese and Syrian borders as well as the West Bank, while withdrawing regular troops from those areas to reinforce efforts in Gaza. Sirens sounded across Jerusalem and several parts of Israel today morning after the Israeli occupation military reported intercepting a missile launched from Yemen. The military said the projectile was down successfully and that warning sirens were triggered in multiple areas as a precaution. The launch comes as the United States intensifies its military campaign against Yemen's Houthi group. President Donald Trump ordered the strikes in March, marking the largest U.S. operation in the Middle East since he took office in January. The Houthis say their attacks on Israel and Red Sea shipping are a show of solidarity with Palestinians amid the ongoing war on Gaza. A spokesperson for Yemen's Houthi military claimed responsibility for a missile strike on an Israeli target in the southern occupied region of Jaffa. The attack was carried out using a Palestine II hypersonic ballistic missile, which the spokesperson stated successfully reached its target despite Israel's interception systems failing to prevent the strike. In a statement, Houthi military spokesperson Yahya Sariyah emphasized that the Yemeni armed forces will continue their support for the Palestinian people until the aggression against Gaza ceases and the siege is lifted. And for further analysis, we're joined from Ramallah by the Fatah spokesperson, Mr. Ahmed Fattouh. Mr. Ahmed, thank you so much for joining us on this special coverage. And let me first start by asking you, how do Israel's planned military operations in Gaza reflect its broader strategy? And what are the potential consequences for the Palestinian population?
Hi, thank you for having me. Israel is going an all-out war of full destruction and full expansion over the Palestinian lands. This would reflect very heavily and badly to the Palestinian people. We are suffering for 18 months of genocide. There is now a siege for over 60 days, full siege without food, electricity, or water. We are suffering from a famine. There is a serious starvation happening in Gaza. Today, a young child died, and every day there's lives threatened. The more expansion of Israeli occupation reflects that Israel is after the ethnic and full ethnic cleansing campaign of the Palestinian people and to push them out of Gaza. And that is extremely dangerous. That requires immediate action by everyone who is watching this crime and carnage happening for the past 18 months.
Mm-hmm. From a regional perspective, and given Israel's already open fronts, what are the implications of Israel reinforcing its military presence along the Lebanese, Syrian, and West Bank borders, especially regarding the security of neighboring regions?
As you are witnessing, Israel is bombing Syria, is bombing Lebanon, bombing Palestine, sometimes even Yemen, and now Israel is given that green light from the United States to do everything at once. There's no serious threat that Israel is receiving from any military threat, actually. That is making Israel to expand more and do whatever it wants. So what we need now, and this endanger the entire region, as well as the international community, because once the international law and the human rights is not a baseline for our politics, then this is the law of the jungle. What is needed now that from the region is to find a political solution forward. The military solution is a no solution, actually. Israel is feeding on that military solution. Israel wants the field of war to expand. The smart move now is to actually reduce that field of war and go to the political solution that requires from Hamas and from the Iranian axis to unite their vision and their politics with the Arab region, the PLO, the legitimate Palestinian Authority, to find a political solution forward, how to pressure Israel to stop. Now we need to remove all the justification, all the excuses and the claims from the Israeli table, and Hamas need to think clearly about adopting the Arab plan seriously and declare that and call for the Palestinian Authority to come to Gaza. That would open channel to go to America. We have to face the truth here. What Israel is doing now was not going to happen without the American full-fledged support.
Mm-hmm. Now, serving on to the Houthis striking Israeli targets, how do these missile strikes on Israeli targets impact the balance of power in the region?
I'm going to be honest, with all respect to them and support and solidarity with the Palestinian people, but it has no major impact. Frankly, in the military power, in the military balance, Israel is overpowering all the others, and we have to admit the truth. We are receiving severe losses in Palestine. As I said, in Gaza, there is no food. They are suffering immensely for 18 months. We have to think clearly. We have to think smartly. Yemen, of course, they are doing what they can do, but now requires a total unity of the Arab world and all the political factions of Palestine and outside Palestine, that we have to think forward how we could stop Israel. Israel is receiving unlimited resources from military supplies from America, and as well as the political support and the money support. Now, United States of America is set some terms or excuses in order to give that support. If we are able to dismantle these excuses on the international community and within the American society, then we would remove a major player from the Israeli war, and Netanyahu would not find any of this carnage against the Palestinian people. Mm-hmm. So what, in terms of, if you ask me military-wise, Israel is feeding on that attack to expand their war further. Israel excels in the field of death and destruction and bombing, but the field of peace and law and political solidarity, they would fail. So we have to divert the ship toward a political solution that would actually save our people from this carnage after 18 months of genocide and starvation.
Sir, with the Houthis announcing successfully launching a missile strike on an Israeli target in Jaffa, can Israel's interception systems be considered reliable in countering missile strikes, especially with the new capabilities demonstrated by the Houthi missile attack on Jaffa?
I don't think the technology that the Houthis have is going to overpower the Israeli, which is an American technology. And we have to look at the facts on the ground. The facts on the ground that after 18 months of the Iranian Axis military attacks on Israel, they were not successful in scoring any major damage to the Israeli military, and that requires from our side to be realistic here and to find a solution forward to save our people. Our cause in Palestine is a cause of existence. We are facing a settler colonial occupation that is taking our lands and replacing our people. So the core struggle with Israel since 1948 was the mere existence of the Palestinian people and their steadfastness in their lands. And we cannot rely on rockets without any strategy. We can't rely on not very advanced rockets. And while we are witnessing the starvation and all the transfer plans to remove the Palestinian people from their lands, this is the core of the struggle. The Palestinian people are the core of the struggle, not any party, not any external regime. This is the main struggle and the main battle. So we have to save the Palestinian people, and we have to speak truthfully here. The balance of power is not on our side, and we have received huge losses. It's time to stop. Hamas need to declare immediately that they are after the Arab plan of peace and reconstruction, call for the Palestinian Authority to come to Gaza and find an open channels with the Arabs, with the Palestinian Liberation Organization, in order to go as one unit into the Americans and the Western world to put the Netanyahu on the corner and go for a peace. Netanyahu is running away from the two-state solution. He's scared from that deal because that deal will solidify the existence of Palestinian people. That's why he's very scared from the talks between Macron and Saudi Arabia.
Yes, sir. Your point is perfectly clear. Sorry for interrupting due to the shortage of time. From Ramallah, that was the Fatah spokesperson, Mr. Ahmed Fattouh. Thank you so much for joining us here on Q News and for all the information you provided us with. And this concludes our special coverage for tonight. Don't forget to follow Q News on YouTube, Facebook, X, Instagram, and TikTok at QNewsEG to stay informed. Thank you for watching and stay tuned for more updates on Q News.